Hello, this is Screenwriters Beat, strategy session with a real live Hollywood actor, the very talented Bruce Gray, who I'm so happy to have here today. Hi, Bruce.
Hey, Ann.
And Bruce, I think, Bruce, you are a familiar face. You've had a long, lovely career. How many TV shows have you been on?
Oh boy, I mean, if you think back to the soap operas, I mean that's an episode a day for how many years, So, and then I came out to Hollywood in the '80s, and there was all those things like Dallas and I was on the last episode of Happy Days.
Oops, are you still there?
I am.
Did you like I had some feedback. Bruce, let's start over right now, and I can edit that out, okay?
Sure.
Sorry. I guess that it was playing at the same time it was doing its thing on my computer. I've had many computer errors. All right, we are live. People are watching, but please let us. We're going to start over. There probably are. It's live to the public. So if anyone's out there, hi. This part will be edited out, and we'll start over right now, okay?
Perfect.
Perfect. I'll give you a better intro, too. Hey, this is Screenwriters Beat, strategy session with a real live Hollywood actor who's going to give all our screenwriters some tips about how to write for an actor. Joining us is the very talented Bruce Gray. Hi, Bruce.
Hey, Ann.
And Bruce is a familiar face. He had a very long-running Canadian series, Traitors, and he's had reoccurring roles on shows like Murder, She Wrote, Medium, Tour of Duty, Falling Skies, How I Met Your Mother. Bruce, you've done it all. You've been in movies, too.
I know. I was just thinking the other day that how you would know me, it would depend on what part of the population you were part of. Like, if you were Greek, you'd know me from Big Fat Greek Wedding. If
you were Ian's father, right? You were Ian.
Right. Yeah. If you were a football, you would know me from Playmakers. It was a series that ESPN shot up in Toronto. If you were gay, you would know me from Queer as Folk. And if you were Canadian, you'd know me from Traitors. So that's the demographics.
And I always like you in Starship Troopers.
Oh, right, when I ruled the world.
Yes, you were. You've been a lot. You've been professors and lawyers and president. You've played all these really good doctors, right?
And the Moses of the Vulcans. Lest you forget. Oh, yes. I saved the Kishara, whatever that is. But anyway, it's a plot point in a Star Trek series. It's so funny when you meet somebody from Star Trek, you're kind of interested in your character and your development, and all they want to do is talk about the plot. So they'll come up to you, and you think they're going to say, "Oh, I loved you in the thing." They don't say anything like that at all. They say, "Why did you let the Bajorans kill the Kardashians or whoever?" I don't even remember that.
That's good, though.
That is. They're in the story, One of the things that we sometimes forget as actors and screenwriters, they don't care anything about art, the audience. They don't care anything. They want the story. What's your story? What is the story? And you go to see a play, and it can be very nicely done and beautifully presented and so on. And if you can't get the story, you're not going to get your audience because they're not there for all the stuff. They're there. What's going on? And it's an interesting thing to remind yourself, because I direct in the theater too, and so my job as a director is to make sure that the story gets told.
That's a good point. Well, you break stories then in a lot of ways as a director and also as an actor. But from an actor's standpoint, how do actors read a script? I think might be useful for screenwriters.
Well, it's usually a process. That you will go. I mean, if you're Tom Cruise, you probably have a committee who reads scripts, who winnow it down to, because he only wants to read one script a day at most, and he probably gets 1 pages, before he finally In fact, there was an article in the paper today about trying to get Bill Murray to be in your movie, and the steps that this guy had to take to get through to Bill Murray. He had to call a 1-800 number, and then 2 weeks passed, and then he called his lawyer, and then 2 weeks passed, and then he got, anyway, it was a series of things trying to get a major star attached to your script, because if the star comes, so does the money.
Right.
And with the money, now the thing's going to get done. So it's one of the ways that a screenwriter can up their chances of getting the movie shot is to get a star. So it was just an interesting story. But so there's a process for actors at my level, which is we are sent a script, and then there are sides that we need to come to the audition with. So you read the script really from one point of view only at this level. This is not at the Tom Cruise level, but at my level of it, to find out how the sides make sense, so that when you go in to read, you're reading of the knowledge of the story that they're trying to tell you, as opposed to just looking at the sides, which are sometimes...
Bruce, are you just reading a section of the script then, just your part?
If you're lazy, that's what you do. But if you're diligent, you should read the whole thing, because you'll find out a relationship between you and the other character is delineated earlier in the script. You'll find out that the thing that you're talking about, the collapse of the gizmo or whatever it is, won't make any sense to you unless you read about it. So
but
anyway,
what do you think overall? How do actors, and the majority of actors, read the script?
Well, the first time you're just looking for how many lines do I have.
Okay.
And I think I jokingly told you about the Rita Moreno school of acting, where he
Please
just
went,
bullshit, my line, bullshit, my line, bullshit, bullshit. But an actor will frequently just want to see, is it a big part? Is it in a number of scenes? Is it just one scene? Is his story integral to the plot? Is he merely the messenger? And a messenger can be a doctor or a lawyer, or, in fact, when I just did Crimson Peak recently, I played a lawyer in it, but he was the messenger who told the hero that he had to go and rescue the heroine. So no matter what, he wasn't written as the messenger, but you know where you are in terms of early Greek theater. What's your job? You are to tell the hero something or other that will propel the story. So that's the second thing. You want to see, what is it how do you serve the story? And is it merely a doctor who says you've got cancer?
Right. So as a screenwriter coming to the script to write for an actor, you really want them to have thought it out, right? You want some depth to that character. You
want that there's some dynamic with you, that there's a conflict. In other words, that you have a conflict in having to tell this information, or the person you're telling it to is not your ally. So many movies you see, or the two people who are on screen are arguing the same side of the discussion. They're both in agreement, so there's no conflict in this stuff. You're just, as a friend of mine said, laying pipe. They're just setting up the plot, okay, and then they have to get in the car, and now they're going to go to the jungle, or whatever it is. But if the two of them are in conflict, then the actor can own that conflict. So I own my side of the argument. So when I go in to the audition, I'm going in there to debate you.
That's cool. I like
about what the plot's about, which will reveal the plot, as opposed to my going in and saying, yes, we both have to get in the car, and yes, we'll take water on our trip, and then yes, we'll take a map into the jungle, or whatever it is, and we're both in agreement. One has to be Mutt, one has to be Jeff. One has to say, yes, we have to go to the jungle, and we're going to do it because my daughter will die. And the other guy has to have an equal stake called, we cannot go to the jungle. We mustn't go to the jungle, because if we do, we're going to die, because it's full of mosquitoes or something.
I think that's a great distinction. So you need that in every scene for every actor, no matter how big or small the scene.
You do. It's better for the audience. It's certainly better for the
Sure.
actor, and that way you can disguise your laying of the pipe
Right.
in a more subtle manner. You know, more so it comes out of debate that the audience learns, and also conflict is edgy and it gets kind of exciting, and you wonder how it's going to turn out.
Entertaining. Well, tell me about this. There is often a thing said when you're writing dialogue, it shouldn't be on the nose, as in make it subtext and they're talking about something else. Or if you, I don't know if you recently saw a movie called Locke, where I would say the majority of that movie was on the nose and was quite interesting. As an actor, what do you think of when the character is saying exactly what they think and feel at that moment, or would you rather it be subtext?
Well, you know, the thing is that if you write something that's too subtext and you don't, and the actor is playing the wrong subtext,
Right.
you still need to be able to tell your story. And if you're too clever about your subtext, you might not get your text.
Right.
You know, so at some
agree.
point, there is often a distinction between a script that is read and a script that is shot. Because when you read it, you want to make sure that the reader gets your story, gets the text. And then sometimes in a rewrite, when it goes into production, a rewrite will come through in which it's not so on the nose, and that the subtext is now clearer to the actor or to the director or to whatever it is what to play. But sometimes if you just see it on the paper and in subtext, you go, well, you know, for the reader too. I mean, this is for if you were writing a screenplay and you're too clever by half with your hidden subtext, you may actually hide your story, and you might make your reader go, well, I don't know what's going on.
Right. So you don't, let's not confuse the reader.
Yeah, because you want and sometimes things get overwritten in a script. Sometimes in the stage directions, they're very overwritten. You know, that he swallows hard and then looks a little to the left and then sees her coming down the stairs, and his eyes follow her up as she turns and looks back at him. It's very trying to make me see it as a camera would see it, you know.
Right, and so what would, as an actor, what kind of direction do you want to see there?
Well, that's then up to the director. I'm the direction I have no control over. It's what the director will say to me. You walk over there and you look up and follow her eyes to the top, and he may take that off the original script. But you know, very often an actor, and certainly in stage, often in film, they ignore the stage directions because that's written for the reader's sake, or it might be written for the sake of the producer who might buy the thing, who wants to see it visually. But the actor doesn't want to be tied down to gulping and then swallowing hard and then slowly fall. You know, you want it to be a more spontaneous experience
Right.
when you do it. But I still think the dilemma is you still want your reader, your producer, the guy with the money to go, yeah, I see why they're doing that. Yeah.
Do you think as an actor that you mostly just read the dialogue? Are there times when actors won't read the descriptions, the exposition?
A lot of actors don't and are taught not to. Because it's almost like all that is written for somebody other than the actor. It's written for the producer who's going to read it. It's written for the director. It might be written for the cinematographer. And frequently an actor will ignore that, because if you get tied down to that in your head and you go on the shoot day and the director wants to do it a totally different way, it's a harder thing to unlearn something than it is to learn something. You know, if you've gone to a lot of process and thinking, yes, he stops him, he swallows, he looks up the stairs, he sees her face. If you keep going over that, by the time you get to the set and the director says, well, there's no stairs and there's no girl, what there is a telephone, you're going, whoa, you know. So it's better not to know that for the actor. So frequently, you'll just look at what the dialogue is.
Yeah, that's well, Bruce. This is amazing insight for writers. I know for me, you've given us several strategies to approach a script for an actor. But do you have one parting shot, one thing out of everything that you would think a screenwriter should focus on first and foremost when it comes to writing for an actor?
Well, I think that the more complex your character is, and that the script takes the actor into what is for him personal danger that might not be for somebody else. The best example was Arachnophobia. Do you remember that
Yes.
silly movie with Jeff Daniels? I think it was Jeff. And he went and there was, in the jungle it was full of spiders. But they established that he was the guy who most was fearful of spiders. So he put the hero in the circumstance where he is least. Hamlet thinks too much. Do you know Hamlet? Another guy, Othello, the character of Othello in the Hamlet story would have lasted a 15-minute story. He would have just killed the king, which is what Hamlet's supposed to do. But Hamlet thinks too much. So they put the guy with the biggest problem in the situation that the situation exacerbates all his problems. So part of you is looking for a character that is, where is he vulnerable and what is he vulnerable to, and does this situation call for it? Oh, and I was going to say one other thing. You want to make sure that every character that you have in every scene is there for a reason. There's nobody in the scene that for whom whatever the issue is in the scene or in the play is not critical. Not in the same way, but there's nobody just standing by treading water in your scene who doesn't have something at stake in the event that's do you know Lajos Egri, don't you? Do you know who that is? He wrote a book called The Art of Dramatic Writing. And it's a wonderful book. It's not a new, I don't know what year it was. I got it as a director because he says you need to go to the premise all the time. What is the premise of every play or screenplay? And the premise isn't the theme, it isn't the subject matter. And he gave as an example Othello. The premise, excessive jealousy leads to destruction. So it's a sentence with an active verb in it. Excessive jealousy leads to destruction. And every single character in that play and every scene in it is part of that premise. So if you have to know whether to get rid of a scene or not, or a character, do they serve your premise? So to be able to articulate your premise as an active sentence with an active verb in it, that something leads to. A typical one is the course of true love never runs smooth. That is
yes.
so many Shakespeare
Classic.
comedies, you know, and Doris Day comedies, you know.
Right.
Were based on.
I'll be sure to put a little note with the name of that book. But,
yeah, it's Lajos, Lajos, Egri, Egri, The Art of Dramatic Writing, and it really is a seminal early book on dramatic writing.
Must read. I love it. Great tip and great strategies. I really feel like you opened up for us how actors approach a script, and it's still a good story told well. Always wins over people, right?
It does. It makes, you know, the page turner. That's what everybody is always saying is the highest compliment. I want to know what happens next. Oh my God, now what?
Well, Bruce, I thank you so much for taking this time with us, and I want to make certain everyone knows where to find you next. Obviously, Crimson Peak is coming out.
That's going to come out. I just did ADR with Guillermo del Toro, the director who did Pan's Labyrinth and so on. this week, and he was saying he's 4 months ahead of schedule. So it was going to open October 2015. So maybe it'll open in the spring. But you can see
Great.
it takes over a year by the time they've wrapped principal photography till a movie comes out. It's astonishing when they do all the little details of it. So that's coming up. But the other thing that's coming up for me right now is I'm directing a play, and it's one of the great things to have at this point in your career is like a second, another way to be in the business of doing shows, and that is directing a play, because you've been in so many, you've been directed by so many great directors that you bring all of their skill through you to the other actors. And did you see the movie My Weekend with Marilyn? Remember that with Michelle?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Oh, excellent.
That was it was fun. I thought it was very interesting, about Laurence
It
Olivier
was.
and Marilyn Monroe. Well, there was the original movie, The Prince and the Showgirl, with Marilyn Monroe and Lawrence,
Right.
and you should see that. It's she is
I have.
incandescent. You have seen it? She's
I have.
brilliant. She's brilliant. And that was based on a play called The Sleeping Prince. So Sleeping Beauty, Sleeping Prince, and it was that this prince was so involved in running a kingdom, he had to be brought to life by this silly showgirl and fall in love, and that was why the sleeping prince woke up to find out he was in love. It was written by a guy called Terrence Rattigan, who wrote a play called Flare Path, which is what I'm directing, and I go into auditions at the end of this month.
So, if for our audience that's in LA, where can they see the play?
It's at Theater 40, which is in Beverly Hills, and there's
Great.
a website, theater40.org.
All right, I'll put that up there too. I've seen several of your plays, and they're always excellent. So I recommend everyone to go.
Come and see this. Yeah, it's good. It's a good.
I will.
And once again, when I first read it, I didn't get it at all. Sometimes, as an actor, you have to have the good judgment to read a script twice. Because sometimes the first time you're just looking at all the wrong things. You need to read it twice and go, oh my gosh. And the second time I read it, I went, oh, this is wonderful. These are wonderful characters. So.
Super. Well, you have been very busy, and I really thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
Such a pleasure.
All best to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Ann.
I look forward to seeing you and everybody else at Screenwriters Beat next strategy session. Bye.